So last time we were building our house, and this is the code that we had prepared. So just quickly, we connected to Minecraft, we got the player's position, we waited for 3 seconds in order for us to go back to the game, and then we defined the dimensions of our house. So we wanted a 20 by 6 by 10 house, made of the outer wall made of cobblestone. We used air to clear the inside of the cuboid, and we used this code to create the cuboid, which will represent the outer wall. And then we created a second cuboid out of air just to clear the inside of the house. So after we ran this code, we ended up having a house. Okay, so it was just a cuboid. And remember, I made this door by breaking the blocks, right? But now our task today is make the house, and on the longer side, the width here, I will create my door and my windows. So in order to do that, I'm going to use the set blocks again, but I will show you how to calculate. We're going to use a lot of calculations here, addition and subtraction, in order to set the coordinates for this house. So all we will be doing today is laying out the math, the simple math necessary to calculate the starting and ending points for both windows and the door, which will be just cuboids out of air, because all I'm trying to do here is clear parts of the wall. So I'm gonna make very simple cuboids out of air. So let's begin. So let me go back to the code, and let me just quickly draw something for you. So yesterday we did something like this, right? So according to my dimensions, my house will be kind of like this, right? Like this. Okay, so here's the width. I set it to 20. The height is 6, and then here the length is 10. Okay, so I'm going to use the longer side of the house to open it and create the windows and doors. So let me just make a bigger drawing here. Okay, so this is the front of the house. Okay, so this is, again, is 20. So let's say I want my door to be right here at the center of this, and then let's say I want my windows to be here. And there are multiple ways for you to achieve these. I'll give you my way, and you feel free to find your own. So let's start with the door. So I want the door to be right here, kind of like at the center of the house, of this face of the house. And since I have the width, I know that this middle point here is the width divided by 2. Remember, this is the original X, Y, and Z, right? This is where the player was when I built the house, right? Remember, it's this corner right here, and then by adding the width, the height, and the length, and -1 to each of them, we went to the opposite corner. So this point right here is the original X, Y, and Z. So in terms of X, I just care about X right now to move to this point. So here, this point will be X plus the width divided by 2. Okay, so why am I doing that? Is because I'm trying to identify the starting point for my door. All right, but this is not yet the starting point of my door, right? The starting point of my door is actually here. Okay, so how to get to that point? Well, it depends on how wide I want my door to be. So something you could do is, if I define a variable called WD for width of the door, or I prefer to call it DW, door width. Okay, so if this was, say, 2, okay, so I should move from this point half of the width of the door to the right, right? Do you see that? Okay, so from this point, which is right at the middle of the door, to go to the starting point of the door, I need to move to the right by half of the width of the door. And how do I do that? Well, remember this, the positive x-axis goes this way. So if I want to move to this is why we don't care about z right now. So if I want to move to the right, I need to subtract. So I'm going to do minus dw, assuming I have this variable, and I'm going to divide by 2, right? Because it's just half of the width of the door. Okay, so by doing this, I'm going to this point. And what is the y? Because remember, I need to define 3 points. So the y, we are not going upward, we are right at the floor. So the y for this point will be the original y. And how about the z? The same. The z is not changing. We are not going in the length of the house, right? So the z is not changing, so it stays the same. Okay, so this point, the starting point of the door, could be x, right? Starting the original x where the player is, plus half of the width of the house to go to here, minus half of the width of the door, and I need to previously define the width of the door, and then that takes me around this point. Now, it might not be exactly in the center, because remember, when you create the blocks, actually you might be off by 1 block or 2, but you will not notice it when you see the house, right? So it's approximately this. So this sets you to this starting point in terms of x. Now y doesn't change because we are still on the floor, and z doesn't change because we are not going in the length of the house. Great. So that's how you define the starting point for the door. Now how to define the ending point for the door. Okay, the ending point for the door is right here. So we follow a similar process. So I'm gonna do this here because I'm running out of space. So again, you start from the original x of the player as a reference. Okay, so you start with the x, and then you go to the center of the face of the house, this frontal face of the house. So again, plus w divided by 2. This takes you right here. And then this time you don't want to go back, but you want to go forward, right? You want to go here. Okay, so instead of minus w divided by 2, dw divided by 2, where dw is the width of the door, you will do plus dw divided by 2. And then remember, if this will actually create a door with width 3, so you should subtract 1 here if you want to strictly have a door with 2. If you don't care, then feel free. If you don't care that the door is actually a little bit wider than you specified, then you can remove this -1. But I'll put that one there. And the reason is because remember, where you start, which is here, counts as one block already, and then you move 2 blocks away from there, so that will be 3 blocks, but you want the door to be 2 blocks, so you do this minus 1. We already talked about this when we built the house, actually. All right, so cool. This is the x, the starting point's x. Now how about the y? Now the y is going to change this time because the door has a height and we're going up, right? To achieve this point, we're going up when we're talking in terms of y. So you could define a dh, right? And you give it a value. So remember, our player is less than 2 blocks high or tall. So you could make this 2 or 3, depends. I'll make it 3. So up to you, 2 or 3. I'll make it 3. So the y is simply y, and then since we're going up, you need to add to it. So it's just y plus dh minus 1. Okay, and remember the minus 1. If not, the door will be 4 blocks tall instead of 3. Sorry. And finally, z, we are not going in, right? So I keep my z as the original one. Now, please note this. I am not changing the z. Notice how my z for the starting point and my z for the ending point did not change. And the reason is because by keeping it as is, so basically the length of my door will be 1. Okay, so I could, if I wanted, I could define a door L. Sorry, not dz. I could define a dl and say that my door is gonna be 1. And I could very well do, not in the starting point, but I could very well do in the ending point z minus, plus, because it's going in, plus dl minus 1. But notice that since dl is 1, so dl minus 1, this would become 0. Right? So that's why I don't put it there, because I don't need it in this point. I don't need to add anything here because it's the starting point. And I technically need it in the second point, but because it's gonna cancel out, it's gonna become 0, I don't put it there. But the only reason why I don't do this is because, remember, my wall, the thickness of my wall right here is just 1 block. Right? So this block is just 1 block. If your house was thicker, if your walls were thicker, then you need it. So for example, if you built like a bunker, like to protect you from a bombing. So if your house was thicker, say if each wall was 3 blocks thick, then in that case you need to define dl and specify that the door is gonna have a length of 3, because otherwise you will only, when you clear the door, you would only clear the door one block in length, and then you will still have two blocks of wall inside, so your door will not be a door. So in that case, if your walls are thicker than 1 block, then you need dl. Let's say if my wall is 3, then here you would definitely need plus dl minus 1, right? So since the original z will clear actually the first block, and then dl minus 1 is 2, so that would clear the other 2. Okay, so you could do that even if you feel it's better, even if your wall is just 1. If it feels better for you, you could define dl equals 1 and still do plus dl minus 1, even though that becomes 0. You could do it if you feel like, for completeness, but it's not necessary in our particular case. Okay, so this is the math for the door. Now let's try it. let's try it and then run it and see if our door actually works. So I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of all this. Okay, and I will quickly do the door. So before I do the door, okay, build the door. So I'm gonna define those new variables. So I want the door to be 3, I said. No, I think I said 2. And then the D height could be, I said 3. So again, feel free to do the door length. Let's put it there just for completeness. Okay, and then let's go ahead and create the door. Okay, so original starting point, remember I said, is the X, Y, and Z. Okay, plus the width of the house divided by 2 plus minus the door width divided by 2. Okay, Y stays the same, Z stays the same. All right, now ending point. So it was X plus the width divided by 2. Remember, this takes us to here. The first point is minus the width of the house. Now the second point is plus the width of the house, because we're gonna build the door right there. Okay, so plus width divided by 2 minus dw divided by 2 minus 1. Okay, now here is the original Y plus the height of the house minus 1. And then here is the original Z, and just for completeness, I could do plus the length of the house. I'm gonna put it there, even though I said I don't need it. Minus 1, because since DL is 1 and then minus 1, this would become 0. So feel free to skip this if you want. But again, if your house, if the width, if the thickness of your walls are more than 1, then you need it. And then it's air. So let's review. Let's quickly review it here to make sure we're not doing the wrong thing. So starting point plus half of the width of the house, and then we already made the first mistake here. Okay, this is supposed to be plus, no, this is minus, and this is plus. Okay, so let's see. All right, so the width of the house plus the width of, the original X plus half the width of the house minus half the width of the door. So this will set us here. Okay, now X, Y, and Z stay the same, so is this point. Then X plus half the width of the house plus half the width of the door minus 1 sets us here. And then Y plus the height of the house minus 1. So we go to this point right here. And then Z plus the length of the house, which is 1 minus 1. So Z doesn't really change. We stay there. And then those 2 points define our door and made of air. So that should clear the door. All right, seems fine. Let's confirm. Control Z. Go back to the game to find the right place. Okay, let's find another place to build our house. I don't know, maybe here. So red to the left, green up, blue forward. Okay, right here. Back to the code. F5, back to the game. And 3 seconds later, house right there. And look at the door. Now, we were not very lucky because where we I was standing when I built the house. So there was like a little hill right there. But now, after I remove the hill, here's my beautiful door. So look at it, is a 2 blocks width, 1, 2, 3 blocks tall, and only 1 block in length. Okay, so as I said in the previous video, feel free to with code remove this floor. I don't mind about it, but if you don't like it, feel free to remove it with code. So that's my door. Let's try one more, see if I can find a location that doesn't have a hill, a flatter place. Maybe here. Let's see if we're lucky. Okay, I'm gonna run it again. Back to the code. I'm gonna run it again. House, door. Okay, better. So this is the door. Now this video got already a bit long, so let's talk about the windows in another video. And again, feel free to remove this annoying floor if you like. Okay, so that's it for today.